Yeah, this is Antron yarn.
It is Antron, okay, just wanted to make sure.
Poly yarn. Antron yarn is what I'm using.
Just curl it and hang on to it and then just tie around the hook without having
What you do is once this curls, it'll stay curled until you start manipulating. And then it'll start coming undone. But the first thing you're going to do after you cut the end and put the breathing feathers or whatever they call them, the gill feathers on the very end, then you're going to put it on the hook, and then once you mount it onto the hook, it's not going to come undone anymore.
Now, couldn't you just wait and wait until you tied it on and cut it at the end?
You could. In fact, maybe we'll do it that way. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and tie it onto the hook. Now the only thing about this odd 8 stuff is it is really thin, so you have to be careful.
Yeah, you might not put the vise where you want it, and then just
Yeah.
Because you look like you were tying in a very odd angle. That's uncomfortable.
It was, thank you. Okay, you wrap your base thread about halfway down the shank. And then you figure that the extended part of the body should be about equal to the shank distance. So I figure that's about close enough, and I mount that right where I stop wrapping the thread. And you do some loose wraps on there to get it started when it wants to cooperate on the top. You wrap all the way to the eye and then back to where you had ended your body wrap. And there's your extended part of the body. Now once you get that wrapped down, then you're going to unfurl this, because when you're making the body part of it, you want this to be flat and puffy because you want it to build up the thorax and body part of it.
So the glued ends to the back?
Yes. Okay, then you wrap up to where the eye is, and this is where you're going to put in your eyes. And here's where people will probably lose most of it. I find that using these kind of tweezers with a very thin point, and you hold it up against the shank, and then you just wrap it right out of the tweezer, you don't lose it. Because I want to leave distance. You see there's distance between the end and the eyeball, and you want to leave that distance so that you can get your thread wrapped in there. Once you get 1 or 2 turns of thread in there, then you can let go of it and straighten it out. Just like that. And once it's there, then you start your figure 8s. And you want to put quite a few on there because you want these eyes to stay there. And you want them to kind of be balanced between one side and the other. And they are extra wide and much wider than the shank, because once you've done the fly itself, if you look onto it, you'll see that the eyes are sticking way out to the side. Now, once you got that on there, and you can put a little bit of head cement on there to hold them in place if you want it. You want to smooth this out and flatten it out, because you're going to make the head from it. And you just pull the head, you pull the material over in between the eyes, and then you take a wrap behind the eyes, and you've made the head. And that's it for the head.
One wrap
Yeah.
behind the eyes?
2 or 3. because you want that to stay tight and down against the eyes. Okay, then what I do is I take this and I do a spiral wrap back to where I had ended the body wrap to wrap this down there, and then spiral back to the front, right behind the eyes. Then I fold this back over and I start building up the body for the part of the body part. And I do 2 wraps there, and then I spiral wrap back again, but
So
very
you're not-
lightly.
So you don't wrap the thorax, you're building it on top.
You're building on top of each other. And if you don't wrap too tight, then it leaves it a little puffy. And you come back to the back again and do a wrap or 2, and then you can try to go all the way to the eye before you make your next wrap, so you're not pushing down on the top. And you fold it back again, and now you've pretty well built the body. And you put 4 or 5 wraps there, and you can see that the body is starting to puff out. And depending on how much material you have left, you can keep going back and forth and building it up until you like the size of it. Now, on the real bug itself, I saw some of them. I was fortunate enough to be with a biologist up at Cumberland when we were having a council meeting, and he went out and captured some of them out of the lake itself, and I actually got to see them. And they are pretty well that size. They're real close to that size, and their rear end is about that long, and then they have some breathing feathers, or whatever you want to call it, gills, on the very end of their tail. So once you get the body built up like that, then you just lock this in by putting a wrap on each side a couple of times, and then you just cut it right off. And then you bury that part that you cut off by just wrapping it. And it makes the neck. Okay? And then you finish it.
That's what you're saying, don't you?
And I won't tell you who it is, but his initials are Gene.
Rene Europe used one of those, and he started 1 million flies.
Always is.
Drill was invented by somebody who couldn't use their fingers.
Okay, so this is basically the fly, except that I didn't put the tail on it yet. And I'm going to attempt to see if I can get enough glue on here to get it. And then what you do is, once you cut it, it'll try to fray out on its own. And what I do is I take my bodkin or a needle, scissor points or anything, and kind of fan it a little bit. So anyway, what you're doing is you're cutting the very loop off. And once you get the loop off, you can see.
You rush it.